Okay, so this is my YouTube channel for those of you who follow me on the streaming platform called Twitch. This is my YouTube channel. And for those of you who don't know who I am, I'm just a guy giving his perspective on history, right? So the question of this video is, where do so-called black people come from? And the reason why I say so-called black people is because the term black or the term white or the term Mexican, Asian, European, all these are either vocations or corporate designations. Understand that? So there is no such thing as a race called black. There's no such thing as a race called Mexican. Those are not races. What the term race means is seed line. So the term black can't possibly be a race because the term black is a color, and colors don't have seed lines. You understand that? And the race can be Mexican because a place doesn't have seed lines. A place, you can plant seeds in places, but places don't have seed lines. You can be from somewhere, but that doesn't mean that somewhere is your forefather, because that's all race is who were your forefathers, what tribe your forefathers are from. But we're either associated with a corporate designation like color or a corporate designation like location. But those aren't real races. Real races has already been told to us in very great detail in the Bible. But what conventional history has taught us is that so-called blacks are not the real group of people that originated. They're not the original group of men. And when I say man, I mean man and woman. But of course, it started with the man, even though a lot of women like to say, well, we bring life into this world. Well, you just stay a seed. I never seen somebody get so self-absorbed from gestation. Like, that's crazy. But anyway, so in conventional history, the real original man was so-called white. And then from the original man sprung so-called black people. It's just another way to say the white man is your father. The evolution that they use of ape turning into man, that's really their story, honestly. It's really their story. Has nothing to do with so-called black people. Nothing. But I digress. We're gonna get into this, what they call YouTube short, and it should be very telling of the conventional history that the so-called white man has put on all groups of people, because they really just came into power around the late 1700s, early 1800s. That's why they use so many corporatocracies, because the United States was incorporated. You know what I'm saying? That's the rise of the white man was the so-called fall of actual rulership class. That's why you have presidents. Presidents is only in corporations, not in actual real areas of regions where people live and they have so-called systems in play, actual systems in play to keep a running society. These countries that are made now from the westernization of the so-called white man's rulership, these are nothing but corporations. Right? But I digress. We're going to check this out. This video, or this short, YouTube short, of why so-called Africans are black. And again, the term black is not referring to a race. You're not a color that comes out of a crayon box. That's not your seed line. That's not where you come from. As far as seed lineage, seed comes from the man. So it's who were your forefathers.
Ever wondered why people from Africa tend to have darker skin?
No, I never wondered that. I already know why.
It all comes down to the intense sunlight their ancestors faced thousands of years ago. To protect themselves from harmful UV rays, their skin evolved to produce more melanin, a natural pigment. The higher the melanin levels, the darker the skin. Melanin didn't just offer protection, it also helped regulate body temperature by blocking some heat from getting absorbed, preventing overheating. Ever wondered why people...
So that's pretty much what conventional history teaches. Is that, the sun caused melanin to produce in the skin cells as like a shield to protect from UV rays. Bullshit. But I guess. Now, I came across this video. I came across a short of this video. I remember about 3 years ago where I seen this short of this man, Roland S. Martin, having a conversation with this white man. And they was talking about, I guess, Silicon Valley or some shit like that. And the conversation became like a who started everything type of thing. And, it got into the pyramid conversation of Egypt, or what is now known as Egypt. So I remember seeing that clip a couple of years back, and when I was thinking about doing this video, I thought it would be a great gateway to get the understanding of so-called black people and their history, because in conventional history, our history is so short, but in real history, our history is so vast. And understand this, there are people in this world who are whistleblowers of truth. You understand that? The Most High got a lot of people in this world who their spirits are whistleblowers for revelation. And it's only for the Most High elect. Understand that? So, when these people have these conversations, like the atheist and the Christian and the Muslim, and all of them are giving you false narratives, but they're also whistleblowers of truth. Truth is not found in the black or in the white. My perspective of things is black. Your perspective of things is black. This other person's perspective of things is white. This other person's perspective of things is white. But truth is found in the gray area. You understand that? So we're going to get into this, and see what it is that they're talking about. The first 40-something seconds wasn't really shit. But let's just see a little bit of this, actually.
Hail Trump! Hail our people! Hail victory! No one will honor us for losing gracefully. No one mourns the great crimes committed against us. For us, it is conquer or die. To be white is to be a striver, a crusader, an explorer, and a conqueror. We build, we produce, we go upward. And we recognize...
Yeah, whatever you say. But again, the so-called white man, their history is very short. I mean, that's why they so-called whitewash a lot of history. And don't get it twisted. There is a certain toxicity when it comes to blackwashing history as well. Like everybody was just black and all this other shit. But the thing is, like I say, is always that gray area. Understand that? Now, this so-called white man here is clearly don't know his people, because he don't know that his people he don't know that his people clearly was not the inventors of anything significant, at least. You know, what the so-called white man is a great imitator and a great manipulator, but not a great teacher and not a great inventor. No, that goes to the so-called black man, which is why the word nigger is so potent, and especially when they they started referencing us to that when we was first started to be captive. And understand, when I say that, I don't mean that every so-called black man was a slave. No, real history tells us that even the so-called blacks had slaves, and a great number of so-called blacks had slaves. But I digress. Most of the so-called black people that are in this country are either native to this land or was brought over here. And that's in no way is that to say that the so-called black people that were brought over here was Africans. No. The so-called black people that were brought over here was not Africans. There's a great portion of that is misunderstood. Just because you come from a location, that doesn't mean that your forefathers are of that location. So the Africans that are in Africa, yeah, their forefathers are of that location, but our forefathers, most of our forefathers that are so-called black, was not from Africa. We went into Africa, but that don't mean that we was native to the land. Understand that? So
is the central lie of American race relations. We don't exploit other groups. We don't gain anything from their presence. They need us and not...
That's bullshit. See, what the so-called white man has created was, or not even created, but adopted the Greco-Roman heroism of, celebrity type of globalism. So what that means is, when you take something like Hollywood, you know what I'm saying? Like, Hollywood is the great globalizer of man. You could go into Hollywood and, you come out with a good hit single or a good whatever, and you could be global just because you came from Hollywood. You're coming from America. You understand that? So, they adopted that Greco-Roman heroistic element of man, and all the hero is a half man, half God. It's like an intermediate position of being half man and half God. That's why when celebrities die, they are venerated. They are gods of the society. Understand that? And that comes from the Greco-Roman days. But something I get into later. But that's something that they fairly have done well. But no, they even in that system that they adopted, not even created but adopted, even in that, so-called blacks carried that. When you think of the greatest entertainers of all time, whether it's sports, music, or whatever, acting, you think of a lot of so-called black people way before you think of so-called white people. Who's the greatest boxer of all time? A lot of people say Muhammad Ali. A lot of people say Floyd. A lot of people say Mike Tyson. Who's the greatest singer of all time? They go to, Little Richard or Whitney Houston. R. Kelly is up there. Tank, Chris Brown, Michael Jackson. who's the greatest basketball player of all time, or the best basketball player, or the best actor, or the best this, or the best that. A lot of people, when they say who's the best at this, that, and the third, they always point to so-called black men. You always hear Michael Jordan, LeBron James, Kobe Bryant, Denzel Washington. You always hear the Temptations or the NWAs or the Tupac Shakurs. You're never gonna hear, or hardly ever will ever hear, a so-called white name first. You know, so you take that and you do whatever you want with it, but that's just the truth. Understand that?
The other way around. We are not meant to live in shame and weakness and disgrace. We were not meant to beg for moral validation from some of the most despicable creatures to ever populate the planet. We were meant to overcome all of it, because that is natural and normal for us. America was, until this past generation, a white country designed for ourselves and our posterity.
At Texas Online Preparatory School, students across the state receive the education they deserve.
It is our...
Now, for those of you who don't know what too many words mean, he said posterity, not prosperity. Prosperity means in a state of prosperous, or to be prosperous, which means like, you know, things like go up or like, you know, excel, things of that nature. He said posterity. Posterity spelled Posterity, meaning, you know, a future generation of people, you know, or generational future. But just for some of you who don't understand the difference, he said posterity. I remember I used that word in a conversation with a man, and he thought I was saying prosperity wrong, but posterity. And I think I said it like that, which is why he caught on to it. But anyway.
Our creation. It is our inheritance, and it belongs to us.
Here's what President-elect Trump's staff had tweeted in response to that controversial video. Quote, President-elect Trump has continued to denounce outside of the conference targeting of Jews was central to Nazi racist ideology.
The term Jew have a so-called black origin or origin also. So, yeah. But we're going to get into that later. Let's skip a little.
The Germans now is Richard's
media that have actually been lying about me.
Heil Hitler there. Why?
Yeah, in the sense when it's done in the context of the alt-right, it's done in a spirit those in their enemies' faces.
So it's totally natural for Americans.
Yes, I'm an American.
Are you proud to be an
citizen.
American?
Yes, I'm a proud citizen.
Do you believe that America should have beaten Nazi Germany in World War II?
I wish that we had avoided that conflict.
No, you answered my question. You answered my question. Should America have beaten War? You said we would avoid it. Should America have beaten back Nazi Germany and Adolf Hitler in World War II?
Well, so-called America did not actually oppose Nazi Germany. They just had to do what they had to do because Hitler went rogue. And it was very apparent that, you know, he couldn't follow through on his promises. But I get into all that later.
Once the United States was in the war, yes, absolutely we have to win it.
So if we won it and we beat back Nazi Germany, why would you even say, well, in exuberance, people do that? Why would you not say, as an American, that is not what we do in America?
What you're saying is just logically incoherent. I mean, you know, we're talking about a Second World War, and therefore you can't.
Play the video.
Hail Trump! Hail our people! Hail victory!
World War II veterans who actually fought in that war. How do you say, that's exuberance? Despicable creatures. Who are you talking about?
Fake news.
We've seen photos.
Yeah, in the sense when it's done in the context of the alt-right, it's done for our people. They're always called a collection of names.
Natural for Americans to use it all about. Why?
Again, it's a... Yes, I'm an American.
Are you proud to be an American? Why would you not say, as an American, Play the video. The 5 people, but I'm trying to understand why that's a
Because that's what it was, and it's nothing more than not connected to the political.
if a person is a woman, identifies as a woman.
Okay.
So I'm a man. I'm a Christian. Are you a Christian?
I'm a cultural Christian. Yeah.
What the hell is that?
Well, you know, many of us struggle with faith, but I'm part of a Christian.
Hold on. You can't call yourself. You can't call yourself a cultural Christian.
Well, all a Christian is a globalist or a Luciferian.
And then say, I struggle with faith. Have you professed that Jesus Christ is your Lord and Savior?
No, I
Well, what you call so-called Jesus Christ is not this man's Lord and Savior.
have in my life. I don't. I mean, look. Let's. Is this an imposition on me?
No. Actually, no. It's an interview. But see, when somebody tells me they're a Christian, and
I'm culturally Christian.
What is culturally Christian?
I grew up in a Christian background. I resonate with Christianity and so on.
Okay, I'm asking again. Have you professed with your mouth that Jesus Christ is your Lord and Savior?
I have in my life, yes.
Okay, so that means that you're a Christian. So how is it that with what you espouse, how do you find that to be compatible with Christian ideals?
Most Christians throughout world history agreed with me that identity matters and that race is real and that they're part of an extended family.
Well,
it's only this tiny slice of world history, like post-1965, that everyone thinks that Christianity is incompatible with identity.
Well,
I do not believe
actually,
that.
if you use world history.
Well, really, the Bible is compatible with identity. But that's another topic for another day. Actually, it ties into this topic, but not in the way that they're trying to make it.
There were people who actually used Christianity to justify slavery and the enslavement of people who look like me. And so
why are you a Christian?
Why am I a Christian? Because those people actually were false Christians. Those people were fake Christians. Those people probably were cultural Christians.
Well, how do you know that you're a so-called real Christian?
Where they somehow allowed culture to inform their faith as opposed to their faith informing their culture. But I ask you this. I go back to the question I asked you.
For most of Christian history, there was feudalism, there was serfdom, there was slavery, there was identity, there was nationalism.
And those,
all of these people...
Because the God of the Bible is a nationalist, not a globalist. To be a globalist is to be a Luciferian.
Unchristian, but you
No. Those are people who actually who chose to pimp the Bible as opposed to actually believe in exactly what Jesus Christ talked about.
Most all of Christians throughout world history were pimps.
No.
You are a true Christian.
No. What I'm saying is here, as a Christian, I believe in the Word as opposed to this false nonsense that most of those folks were. But they were also fake Christians because they used the Word to actually enslave people.
I'm so glad we've reached true Christianity in 2016.
Well, first of all,
well, what all these religions are is, like I said, whistleblowers of truth. The atheist is a whistleblower of truth. The atheist poses questions that reveal certain things about the truth and how God actually operates. Same thing with the Muslim, same thing with the Christian, same thing with the so-called Caucasian Jew. All of them are whistleblowers of history, and nobody is correct, but they all have elements that are intermixed with truth. It's your job to understand what truth actually is and deduce it. See, all truth is and logic is a mathematical equation. Logic is a mathematical equation, and anything that deviates from the equation is a contradiction, which is a law of logic. You know, the law of non-contradiction. So you got to be able to deduce a lot of these things to get to the closer understanding of real truth and real, history. Because I'm pro-truth at the end of the day. I don't give a fuck about none of the blackities that, hey man, we brothers and all this other shit. We may be brothers in the flesh, but spiritually we far apart.
First of all, you barely identify as one, so you say you cultural, you dance around it, and
I'm being honest.
It's around it. No, I got you.
Isn't that a value?
I got you.
Yeah.
Well,
I'm not.
Well, when he say he's cultural, he means that he just grew up that way. It was a part of the so-called culture, and all the so-called culture is a cult. It's where you get the word culture from.
Why do you?
No, that's fine, but I still got to go back to this here. So are you a white supremacist?
No, I'm not a white supremacist. Absolutely.
I never use the word or the phrase white supremacist or supremacy. I use the word or the phrase white rulership because that's all it is. You know, white people, the so-called white man practice self-preservation, you know, looking out for your own. And I would hope anybody of any group of people would do that for their tribe. Because at the end of the day, people are tribal. You know, now don't get it twisted. Does racism exist? Yeah, of course. But, you know, the left believe that, you know, racism is rampant, and right believe that it doesn't exist at all, and all this other shit. This other silly shit. But, you know, hey, look, but that's some true shit, though. The left believe racism is rampant, and the right believe that racism don't exist. So truth is in the middle always. It's always in the gray area. I'm going to keep saying that because it's truth.
Absolutely. White supremacy means that a white person would want to rule over other people.
So you don't want to rule over other people?
I absolutely do not. We've had white supremacy in our past, whether you think of imperialism, slavery, colonialism. That's been a disaster. So no, I don't want to go back to that.
So what are you trying to go? So what are you saying? Because in your video you said we don't need them, they need us. Who's they?
Yes.
Who's they?
The white people ultimately don't need other races in order to succeed, in order to be ourselves. Absolutely not.
So how do you think America became?
I already explained why that's false. Through the energies that they take from the so-called black man, that's false.
The greatest economic nation without
not through black people.
Oh, it wasn't? It wasn't because of free labor?
Are you talking about slavery?
No, I'm talking about slave and all.
European isn't just a plot of land. Being a European is about blood and spirit.
Well, the original so-called Europeans was not so-called white. They were so-called black. You know, it goes back to why I say the so-called black people in this country are either native to this land or they came from Africa, which that doesn't mean that they are Africans, because almost all of them was not African. They was just slaves, and they was bought. Or you have, you know, a lot of so-called black people who came here from Europe after the fall of the black mobility. But again, you know, they so-called whitewashed everything in history in the school system to have so-called black people in this country believe that they're Africans from Africa. And before they were scooped up by the so-called white man, they had a bone in their nose, you know. And it spiritually depletes and defeats the so-called black man to think that he has no real history and all he has is a spiritual daddy known as the so-called white man. That's why the pro-blackities try so hard to get the so-called white man to feel sympathy for them, because all they want at the end of the day is a fucking hug.
These people formed the core of American identity. What it means to be American is ultimately what it means to be a white person here.
How so? Because Dr.
are essential.
Because the reality is here. Dr. King talked about,
and I want to maintain that.
Dr. King talked about it was black people who actually made America live up to the ideals that they wrote on a sheet of paper. That there were white Americans who talked about, we want the nation to be this. When the reality is, that's not what they were living up to. It was black folks who made that a reality when it came to the Constitution. When you say all men are created equal, we had a nation where
which is a false dichotomy, and it is a false premise to stand on. They use that ploy as equality and all this other shit just to make the woman go against the man. And the woman can't really go against nobody. The so-called black woman is not a threat to anybody, but what she is a pawn used as a distraction. No woman on this earth is a threat to any power or structure in this world or in this universe. There's no two things in the world that is equal. And I know a lot of people A lot of people will probably try to disagree with that, but there's no two things in this world that are equal, not even twin brothers. All equality is a carrot dangling in front of a hamster that's on a wheel going fast nowhere and nowhere fast. So that's all that really is. But I digress. I mean, shit. Oh boy.
Wasn't all men are created equal.
I myself am critical of the founding fathers. However, clearly they did not believe
Who's all Satanists and Luciferians.
in multiracial equality. Clearly, if you look at the first,
And you agree with that?
yes, I agree with that. I do not believe that everyone's equal.
So you don't believe in multiracial equality?
No, I mean I don't.
No such fucking thing. There's no two things in this universe that are equal. Not two snowflakes, not two nothing. Nothing.
I think anyone does actually. I mean, do you really think that all
And nobody does.
people are is not at play in federal hiring?
Actually, that also bled for more than any other group.
Bro, the level just started and we're already getting overrun. I gotta take these guys out and build this crossbow tower as fast.
Whites, 47% of the workforce. Asian Americans, 41%. Hispanics, 6%. African Americans, 3%. Now, women make up? No. So what you're saying is we don't have enough white people in Silicon Valley?
No, what I'm saying is white people, those numbers that you just read reveal that white people are underrepresented as...
No, it's not. No, here's the deal. What you're saying is this here, okay, in this sector, oh my God, we only have 47% of white people.
White people and less white men.
So you're saying,
released reports.
So you're saying they're not hiring people who are the smartest?
No, I don't think they're hiring people merely because they're the smartest.
So you're upset that you're upset. No. I'm trying to understand. You're upset that 47% of white people work in Silicon Valley, but you have no problem with 80+% of Fortune 500 CEOs are white men.
Look,
are you cool?
Whites are still a majority in this country.
No. But you said the people. So we're in the people. Then why can't we also have jobs?
I care about the country itself, but I really care about European Americans.
Okay, but
in all of these institutions, these institutions are dead.
Dominating jobs on Wall Street. If whites are just, how in the world can you somehow say, oh my God, it's rough for us white people out here? It's not. If you're saying, so, stop hiring those minorities. They don't need jobs. We got to make sure us white people keep getting jobs. Is that what you're saying?
It doesn't surprise me at all that whites succeed. We have succeeded throughout the centuries. We are a people of great genius and ambition. So none of that surprises me. In terms of looking at all of these CEOs, a lot of these institutions are actively this is moving towards a country that is built societies that everyone wants to come to be honest.
Okay.
Where are the Syrian refugees?
Hold on, you said
when they're
built
invading, where are they going? They're going to Central. They're going to Central Europe. They're going to Western Europe.
You said built.
Yes.
Who built the railroads in America that allowed for us to have expansion out west? Who built that?
Yes, a lot of Chinese people.
You said the operative word there was built.
The man started rolling his damn eyes and shit. Oh shit. He done with this.
If your child has used Roblox, you might be owed significant compensation from a lawsuit currently underway.
Yes, whites are underrepresented in these
got
corporations.
You. All right, when we come back, we're going to do a fact check for Richard here.
Nigga, please. Thought he said fat check. He said fact check. I've been like, nigga, you gonna lose that one. Get the fuck out of here, nigga. Fat check. Nigga, we could clearly tell. Nigga, we could clearly tell.
You still haven't answered my question.
Because Europeans build systems in Africa.
You said yes. For us to have
Syrian refugees.
Hold on, you said
when they're
built
invading,
it.
Where? They going? They're going to Central Europe. They're going to Western Europe.
You said built.
Yes.
Who built the railroads in America that allow for us to have expansion?
Genius to imagine railroads. Europeans.
Wait a minute. The genius to imagine railroads. Okay.
Yeah.
But you said
Are
built.
there railroads in Africa?
You said yes. You said built.
Why?
You said
us.
hold on. You said okay. First of all,
that is absolutely true.
First of all, the greatest genius when it came to the building of the pyramids. Do you know what
those are white people, by the way.
Who are white people?
The Egyptians are not African. I'm sorry.
Do you know where Egypt is?
The so-called Egyptians are what you would call African today. The thing is anybody who knows real history, they understand that, Egyptian isn't even the word that they go by, in real history. In a real historicity of archaeology, Egypt is such a modern way to say it. Understand that? But I digress. Look at this piglet ass nigga looking at him like.
Yes, it's in North Africa.
Okay, stop.
But it is conventional that the Egyptians, so-called Egyptians, are white, and they're not. They're not white. They're so-called black. And when I say so-called black, I do not mean that all so-called black people are the same. I'm just giving you an element of understanding that a lot of you could understand that.
Stop. Stop right there. You just said that you said the Egyptians are not African.
Are white South Africans African?
Wait. Yes, they are African. See, okay, to be African,
Well, according to your so-called white people in vocation, of course, the so-called white South Africans are African, because that's the location of origin in which they was born at. That's why I say real race is, seed line. You can't have a seed line of a color because colors don't have seed lines. You can't have seed lines of a place because a place don't have seed lines. A place just states seed lines, but that's it. That's all.
You come from the continent of Africa. So if you come from the continent of Africa, that's who you are. So that means you're an African. So you do know. Do you also deny
African
science that man originated from Africa, or do you say
man did not originate from Africa? Man originated a little bit above Israel in Canaan. That's why it's known today as the Holy Ground, because they know, because the powers that be know all this stuff. They know all the truth. They just hide it from people. But they know that that's where the Garden of Eden is from. They understand that. They understand that's where Adam and Eve are from. They understand all that. The so-called black man is from there, a little bit above Israel.
that's false science?
What are you talking about? I mean, what are you referring to?
I'm talking
science.
Archaeology. I'm talking biology. I'm talking science. In terms of the where did man originate? White scientists.
Egypt was an amazing civilization. It was not created by black Africans. I'm sorry.
It wasn't. Who created it?
People who are white.
How are people?
You can look actually look at art, and they differentiate between races.
I got to ask you a question. How do you
from ancient Egyptian art?
You do know those were black people. You do know.
They weren't.
You do know from.
The ancient Egyptian art has been tampered with. Just like all real art. There was a movie, I forget the movie, but I believe it was like Indiana Jones or some shit like that. And where at the end of the movie, they threw an artifact in a room with many other artifacts, and they basically dubbed it as like, the world of unknown. Some of that sort. But really what the tale was of that scene was that the real historical findings of a lot of these artifacts are hidden away. They're hidden away, and the real people don't get these. They get the shit that we give them. You understand that? Because real history have to be hid from people so that people are confused on where they come from and who they are. That's why I say the so-called white man is a great adopter, is a great manipulator, but not a great inventor, not a great creative, not a great originator. You know, they manipulate. You know, they manipulate history. They don't create history. You know,
science, you can't get black from white. You can get white from black. You do know when it comes to evolution.
What?
When it comes,
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Dude, you never studied science?
I see what you're. Yes, I have.
No, so but
I mean, I'm not a scientist.
But
are
man,
you?
but man originated in Africa. Yes or no?
That is a consensus. Yes.
Okay.
That's
So if
out of
man,
Africa
so if
here.
man originated in Africa, which means that they were Africans, then all of a sudden, when you talk about the amazing works of the Egyptians, they were people of color. I know that's a little rough for you to handle, but I know you want to hold on to that, somehow thinking whites built the pyramids. But I'm trying to understand.
Yeah, we did.
No, you didn't. No, you didn't. Because first of all, they were building things in Egypt while white Europeans were still in caves. That's a fact.
That's
a fact. Okay,
Sure.
but I'm still go back to you insist that somehow that whites are not getting jobs in America in this rough.
but that's really the end of that. Yeah. So, like I said, truth is in the gray area. There's a lot of things that these brothers or this brother and this so-called white man expound that aren't necessarily true, but when put together, it does correlate in some truth, at least. But yeah. Now this is what I was getting into about Europe. This book, The Black Kings of Europe, you know, it shows and it sheds a lot of light on who really ruled Europe during the medieval time period, you know, for over 1,000 years, over 1,250 years, actually. As you can see here, you know, as brothers, we've been shining, man. Look at this shit. Nigga over here, you know, got the gold on him, got the cup, probably got some cognac in that bitch. You know what I'm saying? I mean, you know, he got a nice little shield here. Wait, hold on, wait, what the fuck? God damn, hold on, wait. What the fuck they got going on in this motherfucking statue, man? What is this poking out, man? I don't want to see this man dick. What the hell? Got all type of crazy shit going on here. Now look, as far as the old artifacts and the old statues of the Egyptian people and things of that nature, understand this. When you actually get to look at the real artifacts, not the fake shit, but the real artifacts, you will know that, you know, a lot of these real artifacts has been tampered with. And the fake artifacts that they show you are either real artifacts that have been polished, made over, given a makeover, or they're just all around fakes. Now, there was a movie, I believe, in the 90s or some shit like that. It was by Indiana Jones, I believe, in one of the movies. They had an artifact, and they tossed it in a room full of artifacts, and they closed the door, and it basically dubbed it as like a world that the real world don't see. And, you know, and that's very revelatory because in real life, they have rooms just like that. Like, a lot of the real artifacts are in the basement of the Smithsonian. People don't even know that. A lot of the artifacts that you see in museums are fake, outright fake. They got all the real artifacts in the basement of the Smithsonian and even other big museum corporations. They hide all that shit, and it's a world unknown to to the world outside of it. And now, you see a big target in a lot of these real artifacts is the nose and the mouth. Because if you see the nose and the mouth, and the nose is big, the mouth is big, it's a nigga. It's a motherfucking nigga. My nigga. It's a motherfucking nigga, man. Wide nose and big ass lips. Of course that's a nigga. See that? Nose, again, it's a target. The nose, again, is a target. You're going to keep seeing it, man. Now, this is very revelatory. This is William Shakespeare. As you can see, he has, so-called black features. He always was depicted with the curly hair. Who got curly knotted up hair? White people got straight hair. So he's a nigga. But, obviously, from this angle, you can see he has that brown, reddish skin. Now, that's very revelatory in itself. The term red skin or ruddy skin, all that mean is a so-called black man. That's why the team that was formerly known as Washington Redskins, if you see the Native American on that symbol, you could put your chocolate against his face and you'd be like, damn, nigga look like me. You know what I'm saying? Because you have that brownish, reddish skin, the Redskins. Now, in history, red is oftentimes given to so-called white people. But the term red skin is really given to so-called black people because of their copper skin type tone. The Mashiach, he was said to have in the Revelation, a skin of copper. That's all that means. And as you can see, this is a so-called whitewashed version of that man. He looked like the goat, and the goat is very much associated, even in biblically, to the so-called white man. And Alexander III, the so-called black man, they got him depicted as a so-called white man, but it's whatever. Like I said, the blacks ruled Europe for over 1,250 years. So this is impossible for this picture to be true. It's impossible for this depiction to be true. But even if you look at it, you kind of tell a little bit, but they will often give you these depictions of these people, and they will often have like curly hair, but they just have white features. Now, black brain, white brain. Is intelligent, skin deep? Gavin Evans, the author of this. This is referencing the idea that Richard, I believe his name was, the man that was in the interview, talking about, how smart, whatever, genius of the so-called white man. This here is very revelatory of the difference between the so-called black man and so-called white man brain. You understand that? All right. Hey, so this is going to shed a little bit light of the so-called Egyptians that Richard and Roland S. Martin was speaking of. And, they didn't go by the term Egyptian, but we'll use the dub. We'll use that dub for now. But we're going to shed a little light on the Egyptians. Furthermore, we're also going to shed light on Moses and who he was mistaken for, and how that is potent to understanding who the people of the book is and how far back our history actually goes. Understand that? So we're going to read Exodus chapter 2. We're going to read from verse 1 all the way down to, I believe, haven't read this shit in so long, 19 to 21. Say that. So verse 1. And there went a man of the house of Levi and took to wife a daughter of Levi. Now pause. What is Levi? There's this big misconception in conventional history that all of Israel were Jewish. Now, that's impossible because the term Jewish wasn't even around in the biblical times. It didn't come about until around the 1100s all the way to the 1600s. So we know that term is a fairly new term, more modern term. Now, if you wanna take it there, yeah, Titus 1 and I believe 14 or something like that, it does mention Jewish, but it wasn't appointing to the people. Understand that? So a Jew was called a Jew because they was from the tribe or the house of Judah. You know, you had tribes. There was tribes in Israel. You had the 12 tribes or the 13 tribes. You had Judah, Benjamin, Levi, Manasseh, Ephraim, Joseph, Reuben. In conventional history, don't teach you none of this shit. They just teach you, you know what I'm saying, the Jews and the Jewish people at the time. And it wasn't no Jewish people. You know, that's how you know that they want to convolute everything and confuse the people. You know, and they're really trying to do that to so-called black people because they know the significance of so-called black people, and they know that everything in the Bible is not even applicable to the other groups of people on the earth. It's only applicable to the so-called black man. And the other groups of the earth is already predestined and already have a ending. They already have a prophecy. So why is everybody prophecy so bundled up into believing that, hey, everybody has a savior in Jesus Christ and all this other shit? It's almost ridiculous. And the woman conceived and bare a son. And when she saw him that he was a goodly child, she hid him 3 months. And when she could not longer hide him, she took him an ark of the bulrushes and daubed it with slime and with pitch and put the child therein. And she laid it in the flags by the river's brink. Now pause. Daubed is like dabbed, except it's like a rougher version. You daub something, you're smearing it. And his sister stood afar off to wit what would be done to him, meaning she witnessed it. And the daughter of the Pharaoh came down to wash herself at the river, and her maidens walked along the river's side. And when she saw the ark among the flags, she sent her maid to fetch it. And when she had opened it, she saw the child, and behold, the babe wept. And she had compassion on him and said, this is one of the Hebrews' children. So she knew. Then said his sister to the Pharaoh's daughter, shall I go and call to thee a nurse of the Hebrew women, and that she may nurse the child for thee? And the Pharaoh's daughter said to her, go. And the maid went and called the child's mother. So she went to go get the child's mother. And Pharaoh's daughter said unto her, take this child away and nurse it for me, and I will give thee thy wages. And the woman took the child and nursed it. And the child grew, and she brought him unto the Pharaoh's daughter, and he became her son. And she called his name Moses. And she said, because I drew him out of the water. Nomen, omen. Nomen, omen. And it came to pass in those days when Moses was grown, and he went out unto his brethren and looked out on their burdens. And he spied an Egyptian smiting a Hebrew, one of his brethren. Now, smiting or smite meaning striking. And notice how it said his brethren. So he knew he was a Hebrew. So all this talk about he didn't know and all this other shit, that's not biblical. People always like to say a lot of silly, dumb shit. But anyway, and he looked this way and that way. And when he saw that there was no man, he slew the Egyptian and hid him in the sand. So he killed him. Slew meaning killed. And when he went out the second day, behold, 2 men of the Hebrews strove together. And he said to him that did the wrong, wherefore smitest thou thy fellow? And he said, who made thee a prince and a judge over us? Intendest thou to kill me as thou killedest the Egyptian? And Moses feared and said, surely this thing is known. Now when Pharaoh heard this thing, he sought to slay Moses, meaning he wanted to kill that motherfucker. But Moses fled from the face of the Pharaoh and dwelt in the land of Midian, and he sat down by a well. Now the priest of Midian had 7 daughters. This is still in Egypt, by the way. Had 7 daughters. And they came and drew water and filled the troughs to water their father's flock. Now troughs meaning a container. And the shepherds came and drove them away, but Moses stood up and helped them and watered their flock. Now watch this. And when they came to Reuel their father, he said, "How is it that ye are come too soon, so soon today?" And they said, "An Egyptian delivered us out of the hand of the shepherds, and also drew water enough for us and watered the flock." And he said unto his daughters, "And where is he? Why is it that ye have left the man? Call him, and he may eat bread." So he wanted to meet this man that helped his daughters. And Moses was content and dwelled with the man. Was content to dwell with the man. And he gave Moses Zipporah, his daughter. You know what I'm saying? So Moses, you know what I'm saying, getting pussy. But that should shed some light, a little bit of light, on who Moses was and who he was mistaken for. So we know he was a Hebrew or an Israelite. You know, not all Hebrews are Israelites, but all Israelites are Hebrews. Just to throw that out there. But he was an Israelite. He was a Levite, not a Jew. Now, they did call the southern kingdom Jews for territorial reasons because that was the kingdom of Judah. But let's shed a little bit more light on who the Egyptians were and how that is more potent to understanding who Moses is and who he was mistaken for. Right? So that was a good read, and we're gonna get some light on who the fuck were the Egyptians, because that's also important to understand it. And please know that, you know, a lot of these things aren't taught in conventional history, but that's why you have to read for yourself, man. You got to read for yourself. If you ain't reading for yourself, you're going to get lost in the sauce. But, you know, a nigga once told me that reading is fundamental. Now, I just wanted to shed some light on Egypt and their name. The name Egypt really is really the people who occupy the land Egypt today. The ancients call it Kemet. And here in the etymology of Kemet, it says black country. Now, when you go to Egypt, it says Old English. And it talks about, you know, not here, but so the Egyptian name Kemet means black country, possibly refers to the rich delta soil. It does. The ancient Egyptians, as I should say, they went by Kemets. You know, it refers to fertile or dark soil of the Nile River, which was crucial for agriculture. And, you know, it basically a term that they adopted, you know, to be associated with the color of the soil, because all Kemet means is black land. That's all it means, black land. And to be what's the word I'm looking for? Had it at the tip of my tongue. Don't y'all hate that shit? You know, to be a Kemetic man, a Cometian, is to basically say, you know, you're of the color of the soil. And the soil that they was referring to was, again, the delta soil, has this thing I like to refer to, but yeah. But that's really it, you know. Now, this is what I was talking about when I was telling you guys about the etymology of the term redskin. Now, in this first couple of words, it says North American Indian, 1990s, from red plus skin. Not the preferred term. Red as the skin color of Native Americans is from a 1580s red man. All this other dumb shit. But let's get to the you know, the nitty gritty of the shit. Now, I told you that historically the term red could also refer to so-called white people, you know, because of their, you know, their ways in their bright red pigmentation. But that's the least of the kind that it refers to. Now, let's see. Okay, look, right here. It says here, starting right here, Old English, long vowel pronunciation. It corresponds to brown, black, right, red itself being rare as a surname. So as you can see, the first two is brown and black. And if you're a so-called black man, you could kind of see, you know, oh, damn. You know, it's a little brownish, reddish, you know, copper color. Understand that? Let's see. It pretty much proved my point, though. But they corresponded with the so-called Native Americans, who were not the people that you pretty much associate with. Now, as you can see here, the Washington Redskins, you know, their emblem, as you can see, is of a man with a big nose. And you got, you know, braids and shit. But as you can see a little bit that this so-called black man rocking this helmet. And you can see it's a little bit of a copper type of tone to him, just like the person on the emblem. These are not far apart in complexion, just to let you guys know and see this. But, you know, that'll conclude this video. We're going to pick this up in the second part about the historicity of the so-called black men, especially in Europe. So, peace, man.